everybody. It's Mark Von Kaenel, David Giambruno with Von Kaenel Real Estate Group. We're here happy to really want to get some information to you guys out on what's happening with the virus. We're constantly getting phone calls of where's the market at? Should I sell? Should I buy? As we've said before, the market's still moving. We are still seeing a lot of activity. But we wanted to really show you some daily stats that are coming out that are really interesting, because there's a perception that things might be the sky's falling. Well, it's really not. And I think these stats are going to show it, Dave. And I think you've done a great job putting these together. What do we got on those stats, buddy?
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. And you're right. I mean, as soon as the shelter in place hit, it was a little bit of, the sky is falling. But then shortly thereafter, and we'll see through these graphs that, that things are trending, albeit down, are still trending in a positive position. So I'll share those now. Yeah,
sure. While you're pulling that up, it's interesting because we did our Monday meeting with all of our agents this morning, obviously via Zoom. And boy, you're talking to agents. We had about 60 of us on that call, and people are still picking up listings and putting buyers into contracts. So the market's still moving. Nothing's really stopped. And again, I think it's great that these slides are really going to paint an interesting picture for everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. So here's our first slide, and it basically takes everything from March 1st to yesterday. And this is from 2019 versus 2020. So, what you can see here is, numbers are down a little bit, right? And let me just preface it with, these are the 5 MLS counties that we have in our network, right? And we'll cover exactly what those are, but essentially it's Monterey, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara County, I think San Mateo, maybe, and one more. And we can get into those at the end.
Sure.
But the biggest drop off that you'll see, pendings are down about 45%. And then the actual number of properties that were withdrawn during this period are up 65%, which we would expect, right? A lot of people were uncertain going into the shelter in place, but I do think that's inventory that we will see come on the market down the road.
Yeah, I think something that the graphs are going to show us after this is that a lot of these numbers are from when it initially hit, right? And now you're kind of seeing whatever the norm is, we're starting to see normalcy in this market kind of play into it. But those numbers are a little skewed with when this first came out and everybody's emotional impact from that. So let's get those graphs up there and show everybody what that looks like.
Definitely. So as we go through here, let me just thumb through. So these are new homes listed this period last year versus this year. The main thing to look at is that the thin blue line was last year, the orange line this year. As you can see, prior to the shelter in place, we were trending, pretty well on, lock in step with what we were seeing last year. And then as that shelter in place hit, obviously the amount of new listings decreased, quite a bit.
Hey, David, what I want to point out for everybody that, I know this is a roller coaster. We got a lot of peaks and valleys in there. The valleys are simply because this is on a daily tracking, or every 2 days they're tracking, right? So those valleys are basically the weekends when they're not really reporting. Is that right? Or we're not closing escrows.
Right. Yeah. We're not closing escrows, and we typically don't put new homes on the market during the weekend as well. So you'll see that. Yeah. This current slide, tracks every 2 days. And so that's why you see those, peaks and valleys. But the overall trend, you'll see we're cruising at about 100 or so new listings per day.
So overall, we're down about 50% on the new listings hitting the market.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
And then here we go for solds. I like this slide a lot because, again, we were trending same as we were last year. Right. Shelter in place hit. And although we're down slightly, I think the stats said about 20% or so, deals are still getting closed. Now, granted, those were likely transactions that were in contract prior to the shelter in place, but it's still showing that there's a healthy amount of sold properties transacting daily.
Yeah, and what I saw, I go back to the earlier slide. The earlier slide showed that we're hitting about 100 new listings coming on. But if you go back to the slide you just had up, is that about we're getting about 100 sold properties too?
Yeah, if you look at the amount of inventory we have on the market, we only have, even with all of this craziness that's happened, we only have about a month and a half worth of inventory on the market,
which is very, very limited.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, absolutely. Most markets say that you need approximately 6 months of inventory just to be a neutral market. So we're still a ways off from that.
Still on the seller side of things, huh?
Absolutely. Quick example. I just got a property in Cambrian in contract yesterday. On the market one day, there was multiple offers, and we had to go over the asking price to get it. But fortunately enough, our clients got the house.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that still multiple offers and over list price.
Yeah. So here's a slide that I think kind of predicts our future sales. So it's the amount of current contracts that have gone pending. So if you see a lot of activity prior to the shelter in place, since then we've broken off quite a bit from where we were this time last year.
Sure.
So, and Mark, let me know your thoughts too, but I really feel that this is going to show the amount of sales for May. I guess you would say those numbers appear that they might be down quite a bit off of our normal.
Yeah, I think it's down quite a bit. It's also because our listings are down quite a bit as well, right? So I mean, that's going to show those individual numbers. But I'll tell you, the conversation that we're constantly having, again, it's not the sky's falling and we're going to come out of it. We're actually expecting to see a resurgence of this market when we come out of it, because there's so many sellers that have held off. However, those sellers that are coming on right now, as we just talked about, we're still seeing multiple offers and great activity on them. So it's really interesting to see that people are still buying and selling. The market's still moving.
No, I agree. And to your point, the fact that in Santa Clara County, at least, we can only show vacant properties.
Right.
So and half of our market's made up of owner occupied or tenant occupied properties. So it is going to take a little while for some of those to get sold. But certainly, to your point, the vacant properties are still moving quickly.
Right.
So this slide, TFTs, or transactions that fell through, obviously. Yeah, obviously we saw that big spike right after the SIP. People freaked out a little bit. But again, if you look post shelter in place, I mean, we're trending really with where we were last year.
Well, and that's what's really interesting. If you look at that number on the initial slide you threw up, it was a big number. But I think that's because, look what happened within the first couple of days of the SIP coming out. Everybody kind of panicked, had that emotional reaction to it. And then if you look as things kind of settled down, it's almost the exact same trend as we had last year.
Yeah, and so I think as we continue to monitor these stats over time, you're going to see those percentages go down, once we get further past the shelter in place.
Right.
Again, no surprise here, canceled listings, big spike after the shelter in place. But look at just a week after the shelter in place, right. I mean, we go right back to kind of, normal trends.
It is interesting. You see a little bit of a pickup. This is literally last Thursday, right? Thursday, It looks like you had several amount of people that were sitting there thinking about canceling it. But otherwise, it's pretty much following the exact same trend.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then obviously, similar to canceled, we have our withdrawn listings. Right. And again, the big spike. And then after about a week, when people realize that it looks like it's going to, the market's going to still continue to move, still plenty of buyers and sellers out there, we return to kind of our normal trends.
I think one of the things this brings up, and the reason why we don't see a lot more fallout of these withdrawals, is because our local MLS has stopped counting days on the market. Although Zillow and Redfin still doing that outside of it, the local MLS keeps it at 0 days, I believe. Isn't that right, David?
Yeah, that's correct. And so they continue to be fresh listings during the shelter in place period. And so just, to kind of summarize, so here's the 5 MLS counties that we spoke about today: San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Benito, and Monterey counties. We can certainly pull stats for, I know you and I do a lot of work outside of those 5 counties as well. Right. So for anybody that's interested, we can certainly pull stats for those counties. That's not a problem. And then just to go back to that first slide to recap here, certainly we're off, 20 to 30% for new inventory and sold property. But to your point, Mark, I think as this continues to roll on, all of those withdrawn and canceled homeowners, they're likely going to come on the market either, second, third, or fourth quarter of this year.
Yeah, we're expecting that. And that's why I think a lot of our sellers right now are benefiting from, again, low inventory, even though we got the virus issue going on. But especially those properties in those prime areas, they're not seeing that much of an impact from the virus from a valuation standpoint. Those things are still going at a good clip. So it's really interesting to see, where things were in the beginning, where we're at now. And I just want to encourage everybody, again, real estate is still a need that is created by life events. We're here for you guys. Things are still moving, and that's both here within California, within these 5 counties that David just mentioned and went over on those stats, but also, nationally as well. There's a lot of movement that's happening. So be sure to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you guys individually about any needs that you have.
Yeah, no, definitely. And both Mark and I have been, in the Bay Area for decades. And, one of the things I think we pride ourselves on is we have lots of great resources outside of the real estate industry. So seriously, if you or anybody has a need, it doesn't have to be housing related. Feel free to reach out to us. Mark and I would love to be able to help.
Absolutely. Funny stat, David, I was talking to Dee the other day, and I realized between the two of us, we got over 44 years worth of experience. So that's the gray hair happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, guys, have a great time. Be safe. We're going to kick these things out to you on a weekly basis, pretty much, right, David? And
yeah, absolutely. And we're going to have different guests come on too to talk about everything from, from attorneys, financial planners, mortgage representatives, basically every facet that affects not only our industry, but the community as a whole.
Right. Awesome.
All right, guys. Take care.
Stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
Bye.